If this is your first time on my channel, welcome Red Heart. I try to give you really good content every day. If you like it, subscribe now, so I know you're on my side. Clint Walker and Jack Elim formed a unique on-screen and off-screen bond, having starred in westerns together. Classics co-stars and close friends, Clint Walker was absent from Jack Elim's funeral in 2003, raising questions about his absence. This article discusses how Clint Walker's relationship with Jack Elim took an unexpected turn later in life. Jack Elim was born in 1920 in a tiny mining town called Miami, Arizona. It's one of those places you've probably never heard of. About 85 miles from Phoenix. His dad Millard worked all sorts of jobs. He was a carpenter, a millman, and even an accountant. Life wasn't exactly easy for the Elam family. By the time Jack was just 4 years old, they'd already moved from Miami to a nearby place called Globe, Arizona. Tragedy struck the family not long after that in 1924 when Jack was only 4. His mother Alice Amelia passed away, the cause a disease they called general paralysis back then, but it's likely that she suffered from something much worse, a condition that had already plagued her for 3 long years. Imagine being that young and losing your mother to something so terrible. Jack and his older sister Millard were left without their mom after Alice's death. Jack and his sister were shuffled around living with different family members. It wasn't an easy time for any of them then in 1928 when Jack was 8. His dad remarried his new stepmother Flossie Van. They came from Kansas. Flossie was a public school teacher, so there was at least some stability coming into their lives. By 1930 the whole family, including Flossie's own mother, was living together in Globe. Millard had taken up a job as an investigator for a loan company and things seemed to be looking up a little. Even young Jack contributed working on nearby farms whenever he could, picking cotton to help make ends meet, but life wasn't done throwing curveballs at Jack just yet. In 1931 Jack was only 11 years old when he got into a fight with another boy, and this wasn't just any scuffle. This one ended with a pencil being jammed into Jack's left eye. Can you imagine a fight at a Boy Scout meeting of all places, and it leaves him blind in one eye for the rest of his life? That kind of injury doesn't just heal up nicely. They tried to help, but the damage was done. Eventually they had to remove the lens of his left eye, making it permanently sightless. Jack would later talk about how it started to drift. That's why you get that cockeyed look he became famous for. But let's not get ahead of ourselves now. If you've ever watched Jack Elim in a movie or a TV show, you know that eye became his trademark. It gave him a look that you couldn't forget, but in those early days it was just a kid's misfortune. Jack himself would later joke about it, saying, "I lost my eye when I was 11 in a fight at Wood. You believe it, a Boy Scout meeting. It was a big initiation night, but I got into a scrap with this other kid and he put a pencil through my eye. No doctor was around right away, so his eye didn't get treated properly for a while. By the time they did something, it was too late." Jack said it took about 20 years for his eye to start drifting around. At one point when he was working on the movie Rawhide in 1951, Jack suggested to 20th Century Fox head Darryl Zanuck that he fix his eye, but Zanuck advised against it, noting that it was part of his mystique. The actor's lazy eye became a memorable part of his legacy, but it also caused him some trouble. Jack talked about how sometimes he was a little off-center when talking to people because of the eye, but by that time it had just become part of who he was. Let's pause on the whole cockeyed actor thing for a second and talk about Jack's life before he ever thought about being in movies. After all, he didn't start out dreaming of Hollywood. He had some pretty normal jobs. First he finished high school in Arizona and then moved out to California. There he got married and went to college majoring in business studies, but during that time he wasn't just focused on school. Jack worked all kinds of jobs. He was a salesman, an accountant for Standard Oil, a bookkeeper at Bank of America, and even managed the Hotel Bel-Air in Los Angeles. That last one is a pretty fancy gig for a guy like Jack. Then, like a lot of men from his generation, Jack served in the military during World War II. He was in the U.S. Navy for 2 years, which is impressive considering he was blind in one eye. After the war, Jack went back to working in business. He became a well-known independent auditor in Hollywood, doing financial work for companies like Samuel Goldwyn Productions and even Hopalong Cassidy Productions. He was basically the guy keeping track of the books for big-time film mogul. But here's where life threw him another curveball. The long hours spent reading and checking all those financial records put way too much strain on his good eye, the only one he could actually see out of. He told a reporter once that his good eye kept going shut, and no wonder. Can you imagine spending hours every day hunched over? Jack faced a dilemma when he couldn't perform his job due to his single working eye. His doctor advised him to quit immediately or risk going blind. Despite limited options, Jack took the risk and switched to a new acting career. In 1949, Jack Elim made his film debut in She Should Have Said No, an exploitation film about a chorus girl whose life unravels due to marijuana use. The film depicted her career decline and her brother's suicide. For the next decade, Elim played similar roles in gangster films. In the 1950s, Jack was praised for his portrayal of villains in westerns and other genres. His rough appearance and crooked eye made him stand out in Hollywood. Jack was a popular character in the 1950s and 1960s, appearing in westerns like The Lone Ranger, Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Rawhide, and others. He could make even the most menacing villains seem larger than life, and people loved his ability to sneer. He was known for his distinctive roles and swagger, which kept him active in the industry for years. In 1961, Jack played a slightly unhinged bus passenger in an episode of The Twilight Zone called, Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? This showed his versatility beyond just bad guys in cowboy boots. In 1962, he played Paul Henry in a Western TV show called Clootie Hutter, a unique role for Jack. Jack played a reformed gunfighter in the series, a rare opportunity to portray a good person. The short-lived show allowed Jack to step out of his usual bad guy role. Later that year, he played a U.S. Marshal in Temple, Houston, portraying George Tager, a former gunfighter who had turned his life around. In 1966, Jack Elim took on a completely different role. The Western picture Night of the Grizzly, starring Clint Walker, was significant as it was Jack's first comedy. The film, directed by Joseph Pevney, was released by Paramount Pictures and starred Clint Walker as Marshal Big Jim Cole, a lawman who quits his dangerous job to become a rancher in Wyoming. The film was a classic Western. Big Jim faced Jack, demonstrating his ability to be amusing and energetic, a departure from his customary bad guy roles and inspiring a new perspective on him. Clint Walker, who portrayed the hero, was also in the film. Famous Hollywood star with a tall stature and deep voice. Walker had already made a name for himself in shows like Cheyenne, so he was the perfect choice to play the hero in The Night of the Grizzly. But despite the difference in their roles, Clint as the strong silent hero and Jack as is the eccentric comic relief, the two actors developed a real bond on set. Jack and Clint hit it off. They were both tough guys with Noon's attitudes, but they also had a sense of humor about things. It wasn't the kind of Hollywood friendship you'd read about in the tabloids. But they shared mutual respect and worked well together. But their relationship wasn't all just on-screen chemistry, it went deeper than that, and as we'll see, it played a major role in the years to come, especially when Jack passed away and Clint made the surprising decision not to attend his funeral in 1967. Just after his role in The Night of the Grizzly, Jack Elim was cast in another Western called The Way West. This time he played Preacher Weatherb, a much lighter and funnier character than his usual villain roles. He shared the screen with Hollywood heavyweights like Robert Mitchum, Richard Widmark, and Kirk Douglas in a story about a wagon train making its way through the Oregon Trail. Jack's role added a bit of humor to the adventure, and it showed again that he could handle more than just being the bad guy. Then in 1968, Jack had a small but memorable part in Sergio Leone's famous spaghetti western Once Upon a Time in the West. If you've seen it, you might remember Jack's character as one of the three gunslingers sent to kill Charles Bronson's character at a dusty train station. Jack spent most of his screen time in that scene trying to swat away a pesky fly, and in the end he trapped it inside his gun barrel. It was a classic Jack Elim moment, funny without saying a word and still managing to keep that tense Western feel. After that, in 1969, Jack took on another comedic role in Support Your Local Sheriff, alongside James Garner. This movie was a huge hit, and Jack's performance as a bumbling sidekick helped push him further into comedy. 2 years later, he and James Garner teamed up again for Support Your Local Gunfighter. By this point, Jack wasn't just the villain anymore. People were starting to see him as a go-to guy for comic relief, and it worked. His tough guy image paired with his knack for comedy made him a standout in both movies. The director of both films in the mid-1970s, Burt Kennedy, recognized Jack's comedic potential and cast him in 15 projects. In the short-lived Texas Wheelers, Jack played Zach Wheeler, a father who returns home to raise his children after their mother's death. The show showcased Jack's softer, more paternal side. By the late 1970s, Jack had landed unique roles, including playing Frankenstein's monster. Jack's friendship with Mickey Hayes, a young boy with Pro-Era, was so strong that a documentary was made about it. The documentary, I Am Not a Freak, revealed Jack's genuine care for the people he met, leaving a lasting impression. In his final years in show business, he played smaller roles like an episode of Home Improvement in 1992. Jack Elim died in 2003 at the age of 82 from congestive heart failure in Ashland, Oregon. He was married twice before his first wife, G. Lise Hodder, died of colon cancer in 1961. His second wife, Margaret M. Jennison, remained with him for over 40 years. Clint Walker, a longtime friend and co-star, was absent from Jack's funeral, possibly due to his personal health. Clint was in his mid-70s and had a history of heart difficulties, including a near-death episode in 1971 while skiing at Mammoth Mountain. After being impaled by a ski pole, Clint's heart stopped briefly and he was pronounced dead. This left him vulnerable and required careful management. His doctors advised him to avoid situations that could cause significant emotional or physical stress, such as funerals, especially for close loved ones. Clint said missing Jack's burial was one of the hardest decisions he'd ever made. Jack was not just a co-star but also a close friend on their sets, always up to something amusing. Clint recalls Jack impersonating a cold on set and fooling a stand-in by flinging water at her after sneezing. Jack's cheeky side made everyone giggle. After Jack's death, Clint remembered the happy moments they shared, including how Jack could make any situation funny and how they never had a dull moment while filming. Despite not attending the funeral, Clint paid tribute to his friend. Clint believed Jack would have understood his decision to prioritize his health, as he had his own health struggles later in life. Clint chose to honor Jack by keeping their memories alive in his heart, rather than risking his health to attend the funeral. Their bond was based on mutual respect and shared adventures.